So you did it. You gathered every single piece of paper, filled out what felt like a million forms, and finally, you hit submit on your Canadian spousal sponsorship application. And there's this huge wave of relief, of excitement, but then, pretty quickly, something else kicks in, right? This quiet, nagging anxiety about what happens now. Okay, let's unpack that. We're going to map out the entire journey your application takes from this point on.
You're staring at that confirmation page, and you're asking yourself that exact question. Now what? It can seriously feel like your application, all that hard work, just disappeared into a black hole. Days go by, then weeks, maybe even longer, and you hear nothing. Just complete silence. It's a really tough place to be. But here's the absolute key thing you have to remember, that silence does not mean emptiness. Behind the scenes, there is a very specific, very structured process playing out. It's not random at all. Your file is moving forward step by step, and we're about to show you exactly how.
Think of your application like it's on a road trip. It has a set destination and specific stops it has to make along the way. Honestly, understanding this map is the single best thing you can do to manage your expectations and cut down on the stress of the unknown. So, let's pull back the curtain and take a look at that map.
Here it is. This is the whole roadmap, from the second you press submit all the way to the final decision. As you can see, it's a multi-stage process. It all kicks off with some initial checks, then it moves into these really detailed reviews, first of the sponsor, then of the applicant. Then there are a few things you have to do before it goes into that final review period. This is the path that pretty much every single application follows.
Now, before we dig into each of these steps, there are two fundamental rules to this whole journey that you have to understand. First, the sequence of events, the path, is nearly identical for everyone. But second, and this is so important, the speed, the pace at which your application moves through that sequence is completely unique to your case. This is exactly why comparing your timeline to someone you see online is a recipe for anxiety. Don't do it.
After what can feel like an absolute eternity of silence, you're just looking for any sign of life, right? Anything to prove your application wasn't lost. Well, that first official signal is a huge milestone. So what is it, and what does it really mean?
That signal is the AOR, which stands for Acknowledgment of Receipt. Getting this is a big deal. It means an officer has physically opened your file, done a quick check to make sure nothing major is missing, and has officially put your application into the system for processing. You get an application number, and you're officially in the queue. Now be patient. This first step alone can sometimes take up to 2 months.
All right, so you've got your AOR. The real assessment is now underway. And it's important to know this happens in 2 totally separate sequential parts. They don't just look at everything all at once.
First up, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, or IRCC, focuses entirely on the sponsor, the person in Canada. They're checking to make sure you're eligible to sponsor your partner. It's only after the sponsor's part is confirmed and complete that the focus shifts entirely over to the person being sponsored, the principal applicant.
Once the sponsor gets the green light, the spotlight moves. The process enters a stage where the applicant gets called back into action. This is another one of those clear, tangible signs of progress that you've been waiting for. You're going to get an official request for your biometrics, that's just your fingerprints and a photo, and another one to complete an immigration medical exam. Make sure you pay close attention to these requests, because you're usually given a pretty strict 30-day deadline to get each one done.
Okay, so you've done your medicals, you've submitted your biometrics, you've done everything asked of you, and now you enter what is often the most difficult, most anxiety-inducing part of the entire process, the silent wait. This is the question that just echoes in every applicant's mind. Weeks turn into months. You're refreshing your email, logging into the portal, and you see nothing. It feels like your application is just stalled, forgotten on a desk somewhere. You can't help but wonder, is anything actually happening?
The answer is a definite 100% yes. Just because you aren't getting updates does not mean your file is sitting idle. During this silent phase, the really crucial background and security checks are happening. This can involve verifying information with other countries, with other security agencies. It's the most intensive part of the review, and that's why it's often the longest. Your file is still moving forward.
But that's silence. It doesn't last forever. Eventually, you will get a signal. A light appears at the end of that long tunnel, and you know you're approaching the finish line.
And here it is, the sign you've been dreaming of. It might seem like just a simple PDF about pre-arrival services, but this letter is a massive, massive milestone.
When this lands in your inbox, it means that the detailed, in-depth eligibility assessment for the principal applicant is now complete. You have officially cleared the biggest hurdle in this whole process.
So what's left? You're on the home stretch. Right after this, you can expect the final decision. Your application will be approved, and then you'll get that golden email, the Passport Request, or PPR. This will have all the instructions on how to submit your passport to finally get your visa.
So let's just bring this all home with the one idea you really need to hold on to throughout this entire process. The sequence of events is predictable. The speed is not. Understanding the stages matters so much more than obsessing over someone else's timeline. Your journey is your own.
Before this, you were waiting in the dark. But now, you have the map. You know the stages, you know the signals to watch for, and you know the logic behind all that silence. With this knowledge, the real question isn't what's happening anymore. It's, can you trust the journey? We really hope this explainer helps you do just that.